been a wild week of football. I want to just start out basically talking about the AFC and the NFC championship games. Unfortunately, this is my disclaimer to go ahead and start off with. I was in Seattle, Washington over the weekend, just taking a visit and handling a little bit of business with my family. And so I missed pretty much all the games this week. So my perspective that I'm offering, just make sure you understand as you listen to me, is based off of highlights and videos and ESPN that I saw. So if I make any mistakes, I apologize already. But one of the first things that I noticed when I was watching some of the highlights when I got home and got off the flight was the first thing that jumped out at me was the fumble on near the goal line by, I think it was Zay Flowers. And that stood out to me because it's one of the things that you teach a kid at a young age. And, you know, when you're in baby pee-wee football, it's to protect the ball, protect the ball, protect the ball. It's better to get tackled at the 3-yard line or 4-yard line than it is to try to stretch out and get those extra plays or just try to make something spectacular happen because, you know, things like that happen. So that fumble to me was something that could have been prevented. And I know that's easy for me to sit here from the comfort of my chair or watching highlights and sit here and nitpick like so many analysts do. But that was one of the first things that jumped out at me was just like, man, you should have held on to that ball. I know you're trying to make a big play. And sometimes players do get caught up in that moment of, wow, I got to make a big play. You know, I'm going to score. I can be the hero of the game. Sometimes being the hero of the game is just simply doing your job. So to me, I'm not going to say that was a play that made or broke the game, but that was something that just stood out to me that was like ball security, ball protection. I mean, coaches harp on that so much. I mean, nowadays players are so talented. They go for the ball, you know, they punch the ball out and they're going for turnovers. They're trying to make turnovers because the defense has been kind of limited into how you can hit people and what you can do. So it makes it tough on defense. So now guys have really gone after stripping the ball and making those plays on defense. So that was one of the main plays that I saw, like I said, from highlights. I hate that I was traveling, but, you know, it was for a good reason. And the second thing I have to say is after watching some of the highlights from the San Francisco-Detroit game, I think Detroit came out in that first half and they were excited. They had the momentum of the city. It had been so long. I mean, it was just so much to root for Detroit that I think they came out there with that. They were pumped up. The adrenaline was going, and they jumped out early. I mean, they jumped out early, and it almost looked like Brock Purdy was human. You know, everybody was like, oh, you know, you could see the things on social media. Oh, Brock Purdy's not as good. He's a game manager. Well, you know, there's ebbs and flow in football, and especially in a big game like an NFC championship game, you know, you have to make adjustments. And I think that San Francisco, they took those blows in the first half and they bobbed and they weaved and they took some good shots. And everybody was probably thinking, oh, the game's over, Detroit's going. But it's a game of two halves. And in the second half, they came out. San Francisco made some amazing adjustments. I think I saw the run with something like 21-7. And, you know, that's what champions do. You know, San Francisco, they came out there, they played their game in the first half. It wasn't working. The coaches made adjustments. And you take a franchise that is known for winning championships, who's been there. They have these veteran leaders. And not to say that Detroit doesn't, but I feel like once that emotion wore off and once that excitement of the thrill of being there, now it's down to playing football and who's the better team. And San Francisco came away with that win. And it was an amazing win. And like, I just hate that I missed that game, but it was so great just to watch the highlights and to see how they fought back and how they played. So for me, Kansas City and San Francisco being in that game, being in the Super Bowl, it's going to be amazing. I think you have two veteran teams with huge history when it comes to football and Super Bowls. I mean, you have Patrick Mahomes, who's blazing away right now. He's making his own legacy. You have San Francisco, who's known for the Joe Montana, Steve Young, Jerry Rice. I mean, they have a history of Super Bowls and they have a history of going to the Super Bowl. And so I think that you have two very veteran teams that are going to give us a really good game. And I guess I can go ahead and make my prediction now. You know, I'm gonna say Kansas City wins this game. I like to lean towards the veteran guys who've been there before because it does it is something to be said about somebody who's been there multiple times and they understand what to expect. The media presence won't be too much for them to bear, because Patrick Mahomes has been there. The Chiefs have been there. A lot of those guys on that team have been to multiple Super Bowls. So I think that's going to be a big factor in who wins that game, because there's so much that goes on during the championship week. I mean, there's media appearances there. You have to be at this meeting. You have to be at this meeting. This person wants your time. This group of people want your time. So you're being pulled in so many directions. But I want to think that Kansas City is going to get it done. I think Patrick Mahomes is chasing some history here, and I think that he definitely wants to cement himself as one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. So, for me, it's going to be a really good game. I think Brock Purdy, and that's not to discount Brock Purdy, because I know there are a lot of people out there that have I'm going to be careful here. There are a lot of people out there that have a lot to say about Brock Purdy for whatever reason. And I think I kind of want to touch on that a little bit. Mr. Irrelevant, I really hate that term, because it's something that I think the fans and the NFL talk about way too much. If you make it in the NFL, you're a really good player. Given the opportunity in the right situations, I think all players can be successful. And that's what Brock Purdy has. And, when you hear the word game manager, I think all quarterbacks are game managers. You get a lead, you want to make sure you manage that. You don't want to go out and throw interceptions. You don't want to do anything that's going to hurt your team. So when that term gets thrown around, I think we've made it into something negative. But any good quarterback is going to manage the game. He's not going to hurt his team. He's always going to try to help his team. So when he does make mistakes, he wants to go back out there and correct those mistakes. So I think the word game manager has become too much of a cliche, and we want to hang our hat on, well, that's a negative. Well, okay, I mean, I guess, but every quarterback to me is a game manager. They have to go out there and manage the game. You want to put your offense in the best possible situations. If you can't score touchdowns, then get field goals. If you turn the ball over, you don't want to do it too often, because now you put your defense against the ropes. So to me, that term applies to every quarterback. However you want to rate them, what you want to say about them, they're the greatest, they're Mr. Irrelevant. Every quarterback's job is to manage the game and to win games. So part of winning games is to manage those games. So, I think that when people do that, it just gets too much hype when it doesn't really need that. But so after talking about all that, I want to get into what, I'm excited about this. I get to talk about the Super Bowl. So I want to talk about when I was with the Giants and, what it was like for us. When we were in that season, 2007, 2008 season, that was towards the end of my career. I was getting a little gray hairs, and it was about my time to retire. So when I ended up with the Giants, I really didn't expect a whole lot that season. I figured this was probably going to be my last run, and however it ended is how it ended. So as that season went on, we weren't that great at home. I mean, we lost a lot of games at home, but for some reason we could go on the road and win. So as the season went on, expectations weren't the highest for us. But all of a sudden we found ourselves in a situation where, wow, if we win 2 of the last 3 games, we got a chance to make it to the playoffs. And 2 of those games that we had to win, one was in Buffalo, and then one was against the New England Patriots at the end of the season. Well, we definitely didn't want to deal with that, or we didn't want to have to deal with that smoke with them. So we won 2 out of the 3 last games, and one of the big games that we won was in Buffalo in a freezing environment, hostile environment, and we went up there. Eli played a great game. Ahmad Bradshaw ran for 150 yards, I think, something like that, something amazing. So we were able to cement that place in the playoffs without having to deal with New England Patriots. So when we played the Patriots at home, it was a game of, we had no pressure, because we knew that we were coming into this game and we had already, punched our ticket to go to the playoffs. We were going to be a wild card game, but it didn't really matter that we were going to be wild card. We were there. I think that the pressure for New England was greater than it was for us, because we knew that we were already in. We weren't chasing any kind of history, because, our record, we were 8-8. So this game at this point really didn't matter one way or another to us. So we came in very free and very loose. And I think for the Patriots, it was more pressure. They're chasing history. They're 15-0 right now, or 16-0. They're chasing perfection. And, to stumble at the end of the season would have been just horrific for them, I think. So all the pressure to us was on them. So coming into this game, it was a David and Goliath type of game where nobody expected us to win this game. Nobody but us in the locker room, even the fans, I'm sure, that were coming for the game and were rooting for the Giants. It was like, okay, we want to see a good game, but we don't really think you're going to win this game. So all the pressure was off of us. We were very loose coming into the game. And as the game went on, we started to realize, like, these guys aren't invincible. They bleed like we do. They put their pants on one leg at a time. There's nothing special about them. We have to go out here and play a game. And I remember talking to one of the younger players that night, because at this point, like I said, I was a little bit older. I was close to retirement. And I remember I was doing a lot of special teams at this point, kickoff return. I was on the wedge. So I remember talking to our young kickoff returner, and I hate that I can't think of his name right now. And I remember talking to him the night before the game. We were kind of at the team dinner or team snack. We were just kind of sitting around, just everybody just talking about what was coming up. And I remember sitting there talking with him and just kind of helping a young player who, he was nervous, and he's out there and he's got to return these kickoffs. So, there's just a lot of pressure on him. And I remember that night just kind of being like, hey, give us a chance. Like, get behind the wedge, let us block for you, and I promise you, good things are going to happen. And basically, I was just trying to help him understand that you don't have to do it all on your own. There's 10 other guys out there that are there to help you and want to help you be successful. And I remember going into that game, and like I said, it's the last game of the season. We're in New York. It's freezing cold, but the fans are there. It's great atmosphere. It's the New England Patriots. Everybody wants to see this. They want to see the underdog beat Goliath. And we went out there and we put on a hell of a show. I mean, it was one of those games that the entire game hey, we're in this game. These guys aren't as tough as everybody wants to paint them to be. It was kind of like when Rocky fought the big Russian, and he was like, he's a man. He's not a machine. He's a man. And that's how we kind of looked at it. We took their best blows. They took our blows. So it was just back and forth. And I remember it came down. We were on kickoff return, and we came out on there. We came out, got set up, and I looked at the young man, and I was like, hey, let's go. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Trusting you guys around you. Give us a chance. And I remember when they kicked the ball off, you're waiting. You run back. You line up about 7, 8, 10 yards in front of him or the returner, and you're just waiting. He catches the ball. You get that go, go, go. And we took off, and I just remember making contact and just heard the pop of the pads, and all of a sudden I just saw like a blur go right beside me, and I was like, oh, what was that? And I look up, and it's the kickoff returner, and I mean, he is just in the wind. He's gone, and I'm just at the 30-yard line because I'm a big dude at this point, and I'm watching a receiver run down the field, and I'm just cheering from the other end, just screaming and yelling, and he returned it for a touchdown, and I just remember feeling like so proud. It was like a father moment where you're like, man, he listened to me and he had success. So for me, I was able to teach a young fellow that, work within the system. You don't have to do anything that's too big. You don't have to try to do something that's outside of what's asked of you. Your job is to return the kick. Your job is to stay behind your blockers. So trust me that I'm going to do my job. And then everybody else did their job, and it was so amazing. And he went for a touchdown, and I'm running down the field trying to celebrate, but I'm like, you know what? I'll catch him on the sideline. That's too far to go. And, unfortunately, that game didn't turn out the way we would have liked, but we realized, like, they're not that good. I mean, yeah, they're Patriots, and they're a high-octane offense, and Tom Brady, one of the best to ever do it. Randy Moss, one of the best to ever do it. But at the end of the day, it was our defensive line against their offensive line, and we felt like after that game that we could get them. And we felt like even then we started to build the momentum heading into the playoffs of we can handle these boys. Like, they're not that good. If we ever see them again, we have their number. We can get them. So that was that excitement going into that confidence that we built. Even off of a loss, it was like, yeah, you beat me, but if we were to see each other again, I don't think the outcome would be the same. And I just remember going back to the hotel that night, because when I was in New York, I didn't have a home or an apartment. I just stayed in kind of an extended stay. So I remember going back to the room, and after all the hype and everything had worn down, I'm watching ESPN, watching the highlights. And I remember they showed that play, and the way they showed it on ESPN was absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm like, wow, I was literally there when that play happened, and it didn't seem that exciting. But the way they built it up on ESPN, I was like, that was the greatest play I've ever seen in my life. And so for me, it was just confirmation that, you know what, we're going to do all right in the playoffs. I mean, now, to be honest with you, I don't even think I thought we would make it that far in the playoffs. I thought, we're going in as a wild card, and I don't even know the stats on when's the last time a wild card team made it from the very bottom all the way to the top, but that's what we did. So coming into the playoffs, it was an excitement. It was a buzz that was just like, wow, I'd only been in my 9-year career. I think I'd only been in the playoffs like twice. So this is my second time. The year before I was with Seattle, and we played Tampa Bay just like we did with the Giants. And then we played against the Cowboys. And when I was with Seattle, that was when Tony Romo fumbled the field goal, and that's how we won that game. But going into the wild card game with the Giants, we played Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. Great environment. If you've never been there, awesome environment. You get to see that big pirate ship, and they shoot the cannons off. And I mean, we went down there, and it was just, we really put foot to butt, and we had a great game. I think one of the big things about that game, we had, I think we caused 3 turnovers, and they had 0. So, once again, going back to the Flowers fumble, if you can limit your turnovers, you give your team and you give yourself an opportunity to be successful. So, that game, we went down to Tampa Bay and we won that game, and we dominated on all sides of the ball. It was one of those games. It was, I think it was 24-14. So we went down there and, we were in control the entire time. And I just remember like, okay, that's the wild card game behind us. We won. It was exciting. Now it's back to the drawing board. Now you look at film and you're getting ready for your next opponent. And so our next opponent was the Dallas Cowboys. And I remember because I'm from North Carolina, I have a lot of family members that are big-time Cowboys fans. Oh, we them boys. Every year, this is our year that we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And I remember having a conversation with my uncle who was in North Carolina, and he's a huge Cowboys fan. Just like any Cowboys fan, he die hard. He swears he's the biggest Cowboy fan. And that season, the Cowboys had beat us twice, and they whooped up on us pretty good. So this was our 3rd time playing a team, and I remember talking to him before the game, and he was like, nephew, I love you. I hope you have a great game, but your run is over. And I was kind of like, oh, damn, you're my family member. Like, it's over. He was like, yeah, hey, man, I love you. I hope you go out there and get 10 sacks. But, yeah, y'all not going to do it. I mean, he just was bad-mouthing Eli, bad-mouthing our team. And so I remember going out there, and we were playing that game. And it's just like any other football game. You're excited, but you're locked in on what's going on. And when we won that game, I mean, we came back and we beat up on the Cowboys, which is always a good feeling, especially a divisional opponent. And I remember just after the game, that stadium was just so quiet. Because in the playoffs, as you know, once you lose, you go home. So that was it. So here it is, yet again, another year that the Cowboys were supposed to do it, and they're going home. So it was just, for us, it was just this amazing feeling like, yeah, we sent y'all home. But for me, I only had one thing on my mind. I had to get on the phone, and I was about to call somebody. And I was about to call that same man that said it was over. And I called him, and I remember my auntie picked up the phone, and I said, where is he? Put him on the phone. Put him on the phone. She goes, Russell, he doesn't want to talk to you. He's upset. You know how the Cowboy. I said, no, I don't want to hear that. He's got to answer for what he said. And I got on the phone. I was like, where them boys at now? And he used some words that I'm gonna choose not to use right now, but I talked with him and we had a great conversation. And I actually remember I said, hey man, I actually have a surprise for you. I know how much of a fan you are. And I had talked to Emmett, and Emmett was on the bus, and I said, hey man, do you mind just saying what's up to my uncle? And he was like, yeah, sure, man, no problem. So I gave him the phone. I said, hey, I'm gonna put you on the phone with Emmett. And he gets on the phone. He's like, hey, how you doing? And he was like a little kid. There was complete silence. And I remember Emmett being like, hey, you there? And I said, dude, he's in shock right now. He laughed at me, and he was like, hey, I heard you're a big Cowboys fan. And then finally it came through like, I'm talking to Emmitt Smith. And all of a sudden, it was like a million questions. And I remember Emmett looking at me like, giving me that look like, hey, can you take the phone? So I took the phone from him and was just like, man, I appreciate that. But, that was something that when we were down there and we won that game, it was an opportunity for me to share something with my family. It was something that I knew that they would always take with them for a lifetime. And even though he lost, he was just like, man, I wish you the best now, nephew, because you're in it now. Now I can root for you 100%. And so after that game, as always, now we're one game away from the Super Bowl, and we are jacked. I mean, we have to go up to Green Bay. We have to go to the frozen Tundra, and it's freezing cold. I mean, if you've ever been to Green Bay in the wintertime, what you see on TV does it no justice. You have to literally be in it. And, I just want to kind of paint a little picture here. When there's only 53 men on a roster when it comes to a football squad or active roster, those guys are going to be the 53 that you basically get to choose from week in and week out of who's going to play. Obviously, you have your 11 starters on both sides of the ball. You have guys that are going to be high contributors that are going to get a lot of snaps even though they're not a starter. So like I had said early on, I was getting older. This is my 9th season. So we were playing against Green Bay Packers, going against Brett Favre, gunslinger. So the decision was made that we're going to go more with a defensive line of pass rushers, and we're not going to lean as heavy on worrying about stopping the run. So unfortunately, that game, I didn't dress. So, because you had to decide, okay, we need DBs, we need pass rushers, we need people that can really can do a good job when it comes to coverage and rushing the passer. And unfortunately, at that point in time in my career, I wasn't a great pass rusher. That's just to be honest with you. I was big and heavy, playing the run. I was a good run stopper, but they did not think that this was going to be a game where they were going to run the ball. They thought this game was going to be won through the air. So, the decision was made that I wasn't going to dress, which, is perfectly fine. I'm still there. I'm still enjoying the environment. But I remember being on the sideline and coming out of that tunnel, and it was just freezing cold. But these fans are just rabid, and they're just going nuts, and they're screaming, and they're yelling. It's like, whoa, like this is amazing. So, this was like the first time in my career where I didn't get to dress. So, leading up to it, it was a little bit like I was a little bit upset, a little bit frustrated, but it's just part of the game, and you have to accept that, and you deal with it, and you get over it. But being out there and being a part of that atmosphere, and so I found other ways to help. I wasn't on the field, but I was kind of an assistant coach. Like when the guys would come off the field, the coaches would say what they needed to say to the players, and then I'd come along and be like, hey man, I'm noticing on this particular play, when they run to the right, the offensive guard leans that way, or, just any little thing that I may be able to see that the player on the field can't see because you're so locked in. You're so, I got to be there. Okay, this guy is in front of me, and all I'm seeing is this, whereas I'm somebody who played the game. I understand the position, but I'm also being able to see all the offensive linemen. I don't just have to focus on one guy. So, for me, I was able to help the team by being an extra pair of eyes for guys. And it got to a point to where they would come off the field, and even when they were rotating in and out, guys would come to the side and they'd be like, hey, what are you seeing? And so that was my way of helping. And I remember, funny story, I remember a young lady, or actually two of them, that were at Green Bay, and they had these toboggans on. They were in jeans, but they had on bikini tops. Freezing cold. I mean, it is freezing cold. And so, of course, they had a lot to drink. And I remember one of them just yelling at me. She just kept yelling. And she was like, yeah, baby, welcome to the cold. And I'm looking at her. I got on a thick jacket. I got on gloves. And I'm just like, you're nuts, lady. Like, this is freezing cold. So they thrive in that. They love that for their team. But as the game went on, it was a great game. And I mean, if you watched that game, it ended in overtime. I think the final score was 23-20. And one of the scariest moments that I feel, I think for me, probably the toughest environment to play in, or the toughest situation to play in, is in overtime. Because unlike in a regular game, you don't have extra time. When we played, it was the first to score won the game. Now they've changed that rule, and they've given both teams an opportunity to try to win. But for us, and at my time, and I feel so old saying that, during my time, It wasn't like that. So we go out for the coin toss, and I think Green Bay may have won. Defense goes out first. We stop them. So that's awesome. So, all right, now offense, here's your chance to get the ball. You got to go down and you have to score. So you're watching from the sideline, and as intense as you may think it is when you're watching on TV, it's even more intense when you're on the sideline and you can see it happening. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, okay, every play matters. Every decision that you make at this point matters because there is no next play. You can mess up and they get the ball and they go score and the game's over. So we're driving the ball down the field. We're making some great plays. I think it was 5 or 6 plays we get in field goal range. And one of the scariest times or moments for any player is when that field goal kicker is on the field and you're on the sideline and the game's out of your hands. It's up to this guy. You believe in him, you trust him, but you're just like, you say a prayer. You're like, oh my God, please make this field goal. Please don't miss this field goal. You missed this. I mean, it's all this stuff, but you try to be positive, but it's hard because you think about all the things that could go wrong. You're in Green Bay. What if a big gust of wind comes and carries it? I mean, obviously we saw that this year with Buffalo. The wind plays a huge factor in these games. And so he lines up, and I just remember being on the sideline like, oh my God, like, please make this kick. And he sent it through with such confidence and like a almost arrogance, like, yeah, I'm that guy, which for a field goal kicker, you always say you have one job to do. And he went out there and did it. And I remember the feeling that we had knowing, oh my God, we're going to the Super Bowl. Like, we're actually in the Super Bowl. And for me, it had been 9 years. I was drafted by the Bears. Got released from there. Then the Cardinals picked me up, and I played here for 6 years. And, that was when we were in Sun Devil Stadium. So, we weren't that great. Playoffs were a distant thing for us. So, playing 6 years, 7 years in the NFL, never even being close to being in the playoffs. Went to Seattle. That was my first year being in the playoffs, so I was so excited. And then towards the end of my career, now I'm 9 years in, and I'm actually on my way to the Super Bowl. This is what dreams are made of. This is everything you dream about as a young man, as a young kid, when you're in the backyard playing football and you're throwing the ball up to yourself and you're making these amazing catches, just envisioning what it's going to be like when you're there one day. And this is just as a kid. So to actually be there and to be a part of that and to be in that environment, and once again, to shut down a hostile crowd, a bunch of fans who are thinking like, yeah, Brett Favre, he's the greatest, and we're gonna beat y'all. You have the other brother, you have the other Peyton Manning brother. We only know Peyton, who's this other Manning brother. For him to go out there and climb out of that shadow, I thought was amazing. And so we win Green Bay, and we're in the locker room, and it's just a huge celebration, and everything you see on TV guides with the champagne bottles and throwing water on each other because you're so excited that at the end of the day, you're still a kid and you still have this love for the game. And now to know that you are going to be playing on the biggest stage of your career, it was just the most amazing thing for us. So we go back to New York and we're getting ready for the game. We're preparing for the Patriots. And now that confidence that we had after we played them the first time, when we realized, you know what, we can play with you. Now we got an opportunity to prove that. We've been saying it. Do we really believe it now? So now we have to go out there and we have to prove this to the entire world, because now you're dealing with the Super Bowl. This is the Super Bowl. This is the biggest game out there. Everybody's watching. So we're just like, for me anyway, I'm like, oh my God, like, we're really in the Super Bowl. Like, this is what you dream of, but now you're here and there's all these emotions. And it's just like I said in the beginning, for us, it was our first time being there. It was my first time being there. So I knew the excitement and the joy. So when we left New York to come to Arizona, I was like so excited. I was just like, oh my God, we're really going to be here. We're really doing this. And it got to a point to where I was just like, yo, you need to relax, like, calm down. You're about to blow a gasket just thinking about this. So, for us being there and for me being a part of that was just so great, and to be in that playoff and to be on that playoff run. So once we landed and we got here in Arizona, it was business as usual. But for me, because my family's here, My mother was here, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my kids, my wife, they were all able to be a part of the experience, being around the players and being a part of that atmosphere. So leading up to the game for me, it was a homecoming. I didn't have any pressure on me. I was, like I said, I was 9 years in. I really wasn't expecting to play a lot. I was just excited to be a part of everything that was going on. So as the game gets closer, I'm talking to my family. I'm able to drive from the hotel to my house, which is 20 minutes. So I was able to spend time at home. I could take my kids out there, meet some of the players, and be around all this. So it was just great for my family. And I remember coming up to, game time and being locked in at the hotel and being focused on what we needed to do the night before the game. It was so surreal. And it was like, wow, we play a Super Bowl tomorrow. Like, man, I just remember I could not sleep that night, and I didn't want to take anything because I was like, I didn't want to oversleep. And I was like, okay, but I want to sleep. I need to sleep. And so it's just all these emotions going on. And I'm not a Plexico Burress. I'm not Manning. I'm not one of these star players. So if I'm feeling like this, what are they feeling? Like what is going through their mind right now? Are they relaxed and calm, or are they as stressed out as I am? So, for me, I was a nervous wreck. Like, I had a hard time managing my feelings that night and my emotional, stress level. And I say stress in a good way, because this is something you've always wanted, and this is something that you've always wanted to be a part of. But now you're here, you're like, oh my God, this is really happening. And I'm going to be in the Super Bowl tomorrow, and I'm going to be playing against Tom Brady, and, Randy Moss is going to be on the field. Wes Welker's out there. Like, all these names, you become starstruck, at least for me anyway, because I'm a huge fan of the game. So, as we get up, it's a normal routine. You get up, you have maybe a meeting before breakfast. Depending on your coach, you may have something. Then you have your team lunch. You have, team dinner, depending on, like I said, once again, the schedule and what it allows for. So once we got everything taken care of at the hotel, we get on the bus. And I think a lot of times when you see guys walking in with their headphones on, for me, that's a way to block out everything around me. You don't want to hear people chanting. You don't want to hear anything. You already understand the gravity of what you're about to do. You already understand what's at stake. Like, you're carrying the weight of an entire state on your shoulders. You're carrying all these fans with you. So you come into a game, and there's just this amount of stress that is unbelievable. I mean, you are under a level of stress that I don't think most people could imagine coming into this game, because your fans are like, yeah, we're here. We're the Road Warriors. I mean, we had adopted that name because we were so good on the road. But, of course, during this time, it's the New England Patriots. They're coming off undefeated. They've won every game. I mean, they're just steamrolling teams. I mean, they're looking like they're unstoppable at this point. So all that pre-hype and all that confidence that you had, I know for me, it's like, whoa, it's real now. Like, you really have to back it up now. Like, you're going to be a part of something great. No matter what you do, you're going to be a part of history. Do you want to be on the winning side, or do you want to be on the losing side of history? So for me, it was just this intense, almost fear. Dare I say fear? Yeah, I was afraid. Like, oh my God, have I worked hard enough? You start to doubt yourself. And I remember having to be like, dude, you don't play 9 years in the NFL and not know what you're doing. You know how to prepare. You know what you need to do. You slept. You got food. You did everything that you needed to do to be here. Just relax. But it's that level of always wanting to do more, always wanting to be better. And I remember kind of talking to my wife on the way to the game, and, guys do that, and you hear them in the background like, hey, baby, how you doing? And because you don't want to talk too loud, you're on the bus, and so you don't want to disturb anybody. And she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, what are you talking about? She goes, are you sure? And I'm like, I'm so scared. I just remember being like, I'm so scared right now. She's like, what are you talking about? Like, you've been here before. You've played football. I said, no. This is the Super Bowl. She was like, what do you always say? It's no different. I said, I know that. I hear you, but it is different. She had to talk me down a little bit. And I remember getting to the stadium, and you come in and you get off the bus. And the first thing you're thinking when you get off the bus is you got your headphones on. You got to have the straight stone face. You need to look like nothing's bothering you, and you're so focused. but deep down, I mean, your heart is pounding through your chest. You're just like, oh my God, can I do this? Okay, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. But you want to show the world that it's okay. Like, nothing's bothering me. I'm focused on what I'm doing. So I remember being in the locker room, and once again, I wasn't able to dress, and it really broke my heart because once again they had to make that decision of, is it pass rush? Are we worried more about the run, or are we more worried about their passing game? Are we more worried about Tom Brady and his receivers, or are we worried about Tom Brady and his running back? So once again, they decided that they were going to err on the side of, I say err, they decided to go with the pass attack, and they were more worried about that. So, unfortunately, I wasn't able to play that game. So I didn't dress, but I was still a part of everything that was going on. And I remember being in the locker room, and when they came and told me, I kind of prepared myself for that. I kind of thought that it may happen, so it wasn't a complete shock this time like it was against Green Bay, but it was still kind of disheartening to be like, God, I really wanted to play in this game. I wanted to be a part of this. But, once again, I found a way to help the team. I knew last time against Green Bay, guys were like, man, that was so helpful. You gave me some real good information. So I knew that even though I wasn't going to be a part of it, the action, I was still a part of the action. So I get dressed, and I remember being in the locker room and watching guys move around. And I know how I am. I don't like to be bothered before a game. I don't want people, I don't like guys running around the locker room making a bunch of noise, music blaring. I just want to focus on what I have to do. So I remember getting dressed, putting on my sideline outfit, and I just kind of dap the boys up. Hey, man, good luck. Let's go. Let's win this. Let's bring it home. And I remember going out on the field and just wanting to be a part of the atmosphere. And I went out there, and I'm just like, wow, this is the Super Bowl. And I'm looking around. And I remember before the game, I went over and I talked to my wife, and I was able to talk to my kids. And, I told her I wasn't dressing, and she was like, it's okay. We're here. You worked so hard to be here. That's out of your control. You can't worry about that. So she really helped me when it came to dealing with that, because it was tough. I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to be out there in the mix with the guys, but I wasn't able to. And so as the game starts, they're singing the national. Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. There was all this pregame hype. Jordan Sparks was out there. I got to watch her warm up and sing. Alicia Keys was there. So I was like, oh my God, there's Alicia Keys. I was like really fanboying over a lot of stuff. And so I remember we went back in, and Coach gave a pregame talk, and, we came out there, and we came out that tunnel. And I'll say this now, looking back on it, I wish I had ran out the tunnel. For me, I felt like, well, I'm not dressed. I'm not a part of the team. I'm going to stand on the sideline, and I'm going to watch them come out, and I'm going to see what's going on. I wanted to see it from the other side. And looking back on it, I regret not coming out of that tunnel with the team. It was exciting. From my standpoint, I got to see them run out. I got to see the film when they put it up on TV talking about how great we did for that season. I got to see all those flashing lights that people talk about. But I hate that I didn't run out the tunnel with the team. That was something that I still regret to this day, that I made the decision, because I was feeling sorry for myself that, well, I'm not dressed. I'm not part of the team. I don't want to bother anybody. So, that was kind of my sad point there. But once they came out, the excitement of the game, it was going on, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. The game gets going, and once again, it's just a game again. And I'm over there, and I'm helping the guys, and I'm giving them, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I think. And when you watch the game, you could tell we were locked in. The defensive line was going crazy. Strahan, O.C. Umenyiora, Justin Tuck, all those guys were just having a monster game. And I remember, and this is something that I don't think very many people know, during that game, Plexico Burress had hurt his knee. Like, he had hurt his knee really bad, to the point to where by halftime, I think New England knew he was hurt, and they weren't even doubling him anymore. They were giving him more of a one-on-one scenario. So, he was a non-factor that first half. But in the second half, once again, it's a game of adjustments. We moved him to the opposite side. We started focusing more on Amani Toomer. We started getting David Tyree the ball more. And one of the stories that I love that I saw directly from the sideline is the play, when David Tyree caught the ball on his helmet. And I remember watching, oh my God, I'm going to draw a blank on these, Eli Manning. Sorry, when Eli was in the pocket and it was collapsing and they had him wrapped up and he just squirmed and got his way out of there. And I'm like, oh my God, get out, get out. The whole time I'm like commenting on everything that he's doing. Run, run, run. No, don't do that. Don't do this. Do that, do that. And he turned and he threw the ball downfield. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what the are you doing? Why would you throw that? And David Tyree goes up, catches the ball on his helmet. And I'm like, yeah, just like we drew it up. Like, I'm just so excited because I'm like, that's a huge play, and it was a turning point in the game. And then after that, Plexico scores. But what people don't know is that his knee was hurt so bad that when he was on the right side, I believe it was his right knee because he couldn't really plant and do anything. So what we had made the adjustment of is we moved him to the left side. And now at this point, he's going against their second best DB one-on-one because they're like, he's hurt, he can't do anything. And he was now on the left side. So now he can plant off the good foot. And I remember he ran his route and he was wide open in the end zone and Eli threw it to him and caught it. And it was such an amazing play. And that's something that's behind the scenes that you don't know what these guys play with, the pain and the injuries that they're willing to play with during these games. So just know that if your favorite player right now is supposedly hurt, he's going to have to really be hurt to keep him off that field because they're going to do everything they can. So, for me, that was one of the greatest Super Bowls to ever be played. And not because I was in it, but just because I think what we faced as an obstacle and what we overcame during the season, and then to beat a team who was perfect all season long. Doesn't mean they did everything perfect, but they were perfect from the standpoint they won every game except for the one that matters. So for me, that's something, those memories I'll always take with me, and I share them as much as I can and as often as I can with people who want to hear it. So, once again, I just want to thank you for always tuning in, and I want to really, this is kind of a little shout out to everybody who has helped supported me. I know it doesn't sound like a lot right now, but I've got 100 followers on most of my platforms. So, it's like watching water boil. So, this is kind of a me to you moment. I really want to thank you for all your help and support out there. And hopefully this will be a great Super Bowl for everybody to watch. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to The Route. Don't forget to subscribe and connect with us on socials for exclusive updates. We'll see you next week.